what? You're not to be practicing sorcery. They're looking for the magic process that's going to fix all their ails so they can go back to doing their heathenistic ways. They just want that problem to go away. They don't care to actually learn how it works so they can go into a court and make those attorneys and those bankers look foolish. Popeye's making them look foolish right now in a mortgage case.
Yep. They're hot potatoing that shit. In fact, they not only hot potatoed that shit down line twice, but now the guy on the bottom of the totem pole has hot potatoed it back up the ladder one spot.
So Popeye,
trying to get rid of that shit.
Popeye, your next trial date is February, right?
No. Next, actually, it's the case management meeting has been continued till March.
Why don't you file a freaking motion for summary judgment? There's no need for this to continue to go on if they're going to keep hot potatoing it.
Well, yeah, that might be a different angle to do that on, but I already have filed for a summary, but that might be a reason to get a different one. Yeah, because, but see, the thing is, and this is where, when it comes time that next case management meeting happens, I'm just going to walk in there ready to motion for that right then. I'm not going to do it ahead of time. And the reason being is a bit of strategy, because I'm going to walk in there with all my evidence, everything ready to go. And if no matter what, I don't care if they even ask for another continuance. I'm going to be like, look, they've already asked for a continuance. They said they were ready to go to trial, last year, right then. And then the first thing they do at the case management meeting is ask for a continuance. I'm ready to go to trial now. I was ready to go to trial then. Let's finish this shit. I'm ready to settle this matter right here and now. I'm ready to honor the obligation that they claim that I have if they can just simply prove that is a true indeed contract, that they incurred a detriment. If they can do that, we can take care of this shit right now.
Yeah. You're going to take your bags of rice in?
Oh, you betcha. You betcha. I'll sit there ready and have my evidence and my suitcase full of 24 pounds of rice ready to go.
Yeah. He's got every one of those bags, those burlap bags with a dollar symbol on them. My buddy Mark up in Minnesota settled a traffic ticket with rice. When you know the rules, you no longer fear them, and you start handling things differently.
Yep.
But if you don't know the principles, you'll never get there.
Nope.
Yeah, that's what I need. I need to get my hands on some principles.
Well, first thing is go get you a notebook, buy you some stock in a notebook company, and on the top of the page of the notebook, put "Who am I?" and try to figure that out. Because if you know who you are, they can't define who you are.
And do you know, Mark, who you are in all of this, brother?
I know that I am definitely not the name on the birth certificate, and I know that I am a living man.
Yeah,
but beyond that,
you don't go into court saying, I'm the living man. You're just going to sound stupid.
Yeah.
Who you are, and I'll tell you, who you are as the player in the game is this. You are the only party in interest. And if you understand contracts,
hang on a second. You cut out there. I couldn't hear what you said.
I say you are the only real party in interest. If you understand contracts, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, because this is all about contracts. Whatever is in a trust is a contract. And everything is about contracts. And in order for there to be contracts, there first must be real parties in interest. Offerors and offerees. And so there it is. And of course, the reality kind of comes down to this. And this is a slight argument Yes, I get this, and I can even argue against myself. But the reality is this: do you actually have any things called so-called rights? No. What you have when it comes to government is your choice as to whether or not you want to contract. That's it. That really is it. More than
And the contract actually lays out the rights the parties have.
Yep. There's where the rights come in. Not that they come in up front. They come in after the top.
I discuss the name thing a lot. Now let me explain this to you, Mark. That name, do you have firsthand knowledge that's your name?
Nope.
Okay, the lady, you don't even have firsthand knowledge she's your mother, but what did she call you? She called you Mark, or she called you Mark Anthony, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a given name. See, now, in the private world or God's world, yes, she's your mother. Yes, she named you that. But we're mixing public and private. The family is supposed to be private, right? So if the family's supposed to be private and the family owns the family name under the law, did you get permission from the family to put their business into the public?
No.
So why is it that you keep signing your name as Mark Anthony Reno instead of just Mark Anthony and then your official title? I mean, if you're a Bible believer, you believe that you're adopted into the family of God. Look at all the saints of the Bible. They had a given name and an official title. You had Paul the Apostle, Jesus the Christ, or you had Jesus of Nazareth. So you have Popeye of California. You're the agent for the trust. You're not the grantor. You're not, because why? You have no firsthand knowledge that thing was even created. You just know when you started working, somebody gave you this blue card and said, here. And you said, oh, thank you, it's mine. No, it's not.
John the Baptist, too.
Yeah, John the Baptist. That's right.
Well, you got to realize, too, that this is something that we talk about upon occasion, because we've all been programmed from day one. The grandparents were programmed, the grandparents programmed the parents. The parents were programmed, and they programmed us.
That's
we were
generational curses.
And we programmed the children. Immediately, we started handing the children things. Grandparents handed the parents things and said, this is yours. This is yours. Get yours. This is yours. This is yours. Everything. And of course, immediately we start teaching children, in a general sense, I'm speaking generationally, we start teaching them that everything they see is theirs. That's why then, and this is the funny thing when it comes to certain issues, you can have a ball sitting in the middle of the freaking playground and every child is doing something else until that one boy decides, I'm going to go and grab that ball, that every kid in that playground wants that ball.
Here's something else to think about. Because that yours or mine, what do we say? We say I, you, me. Those are debtor positions. Look at what the corporations do. They say our, we, us.
Yep.
So learn how to write your contracts. If that trust called Social Security is a trust, then isn't there a we, our, or us involved? Yes, you're the agent for the trust. And who's the trustees? They're right there on the Social Security website. That right there, you already know 6 trustees, and you, that is 7. That's a we.
Yep. We in a big way, too. Most people don't even see.
That's 7 agents right there.
I'm seeing a lot of little tricks that are going on in that whole scheme that people are getting badly wrong.
They start with the name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they think that name is theirs.
I beat a ticket by expressing, and Popeye can attest to this, he's heard the phone call, by expressing agency to the clerk of court 12 days before court, and I told him who owned the name. Popeye did it in court. And then when he made the claim of saying, I'm led to believe that's property of the United States through the Social Security Administration, he reaches in his pocket, pulls out the social, hands it to the bailiff, who hands it to the judge. What is that? Produced as evidence. The judge can't even refute it. Says it on the back of the card. It's theirs.
All right. Well, what about if you're in a situation where you're using a different version of the ens legis that is written on the Social Security card?
Are you talking about last comma given?
Well, for instance, I have a contract set up with a solar loan company to do my solar panel installation from a little bit over a year ago.
Yeah,
and
okay,
on
fine.
that, I signed it as Anthony Reno.
Anthony Reno. Okay. Doesn't the Social Security, go Google search SSA legal name defined?
You can sign your name any way that you want to.
It's still theirs.
It's still theirs. It don't matter if you do M.A. Reno or
Because
Mark
why?
A. Reno. It don't matter.
I don't necessarily get into the whole thing of surname per se, but it's actually kind of true. You signed the name Reno. That's all they needed. But look up SSA legal name defined. They tell you on the Social Security website they don't recognize a middle name. You think you have a middle name. No, you don't.
That's why on the Social Security card it's a middle initial.
That's why, well, no.
Just wondered
not
about
always.
that.
No, mine's got all three names. And other
Mine
people's
too.
got that all three names. Some people's got an initial, some don't. If you look at an SS5 form or an SS5FS in box 1, there's 3 lines for the name line. It says name to be shown on card. And people say, oh, name to be shown on card, first, middle, last, John Henry Doe. They don't go read. But what's the next line say? Name if other than above. And then the next name, and then the third line says what? Other names used.
All right. I've got that search pulled up. What am I looking for?
Okay, it should be right there on the top. Legal name defined.
The first one. Let's see. I've got a form RM 102212 defining
manual.
legal name.
Their POMS manual. It'll say POMS in the link or in the title. 12 something. It's legal name defined. Go to the page. It'll talk about the given name and the family name, how to translate it.
Okay, so I got a POMS manual section pulled up. First name, show evidence. Middle name or suffix is not considered part of the legal name. Right there it is.
Now keep reading. It'll tell you exactly how to translate it. And it says, and it even says in the little gray box, it does not matter to them if you give them any kind of evidence that it says is your legal name. They don't even see it. The proper way to write your name is Mark Anthony or Mark-Anthony. That is your given name, what used to be called your Christian given name.
Yep.
Okay, so how does that relate to like a court case in regards to a contract that's been signed as middle name, last name?
Go read UCC 3-402, the signature of the represented person.
Mm-hmm.
You are the agent for that trust. It doesn't matter. The minute you put Mark Reno, Anthony Reno, and you tie it to the social, isn't it trust property? It is.
Yeah, it would be.
So guess what?
Because it all ties back to that. So it doesn't matter.
Back to that. It doesn't matter. You're the agent for the trust. You've been volunteering for liability. You're acting as a gratuitous agent. You're saying,
And
yes, I'll take all the liability. Thank you, trustees. I like being governed. Govern me harder, Daddy.
And Mark, I'll tell you how I deal with that so-called endorsement, so-called signature, and I very much will. I split the hair depending on the situation, what's going on. I will endorse with the so-called Christian given name, but many times, most times, like 99.9% of everything that I sign or put the so-called endorsement on, I put in very nice handwriting the words, "Not me."
Tell them about the probation case where you did that. Oh my God, this is hilarious.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The probation officer one day, he was all pissed off because I wasn't being super cooperative because I kept asking for different pieces of information that they didn't really want to give me, and so on. So he gets all upset and he forces me to, and I say force because I was told, if you do not do this, you will be spending the night in jail tonight. You'll go to jail. So I felt pretty coerced.
Threat, coercion, and duress does not make a valid contract.
But I put the words "not me" on the so-called contract, and this is something that I actually decided to do beginning quite a while back. Prior, I started doing it actually in a courtroom. Judge asked me to sign something. I asked him if I was obligated to do so, and he said no. But then I thought how funny it would be to actually put the words "not me" on there, because then the chess game would be, if later somebody ever asked me, "Is this your signature?" I would look at it real closely and say, "Well, gee, it looks like it says not me. So who in this courtroom is not me? Because could it be everybody in here except for me is not me?" Think about it. But anyway, I wasn't quite done. So the probation officer, then this is like a meeting or so later. He's saying something. He's getting all worked up because, again, I wasn't being super cooperative. And he says, "Well, I got your signature on a contract." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Can you prove that?" And he said, "Yeah." So he goes into the computer. He types something in. Then about 30 seconds later, he looks down into the right-hand corner of where that so-called signature line would be on that so-called contract. And all of a sudden, he decided he was going to change the conversation. He didn't want to talk about it anymore. And when I tried to bring it back up, he just kind of let that go.
Because he saw that it said "not me."
Yep. And he knew he didn't have a fucking contract. He didn't have a contract with shit. Especially not me. Oh, sometimes it's almost too much fun being me. I said almost, though.
So you literally just signed "not me."
Not
me, yes.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
He did it in court.
Yep.
Because why? You have the right to declare who you are when you are ready, and you figure that out. So what did he do? He signed it "not me." If you understand the law of signatures, an X is considered a signature. How many times do you go into one of these companies where they hand you a contract, they highlight the section for you to sign, and even put an X on it, because an incompetent can sign an X, and every corporation is an incompetent.
Yep.
Well, I have a question then.
Negotiable instruments, most of the time, need two signatures. So you've got the X and you.
Well, I have a question then. To fix an enormous amount of the damage that's already been done.
There's no damage been done.
what do you think about the concept of if I were to write up, say, an affidavit and a public notice and declare that all of these iterations of this name for the trust is not me, and
No, I don't
then
think you should do
declare
that at all.
what my signature actually is, and then
Well,
post that publicly?
it's not going to do worth a damn, because why? You still don't, one, you don't know how to defend it, and two, look, I'm an ordained minister. The church that ordained me, I had them remove the family name from all their records, and I got new credentials. I got new certificates. My ordination certificate doesn't have the family name. It just says the given name and pastor. My baptismal certificate just has the given name. All the other certificates that issues has the given name. My credentials for the church only has, it says given name, comma, pastor. Okay, I am creating my paper trail. When I took in the name and made the company in New Mexico and established a registered agent for the company in New Mexico, all my documents are signed, given name, comma, pastor. Then I did the assumed name certificates in certain locations, and I'm not done doing them, because why? I travel through multiple jurisdictions. All those documents are signed, given name, comma, pastor. I'm creating a public record that people can go look up anywhere. I've got a file. I shared the picture yesterday. You probably saw it, Mark, where I have my finger in front of that file. That's my credentials and my identification.
Mark, think about. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I've got the top file is the contract work that I sent to the Supreme Court to an address you can't even find online. They stamped it received and sent it back. Now they give me some blanket little statement that says, oh, we can't do anything. This is an Article 3 court. I already knew. I wasn't communicating to the Article 3 court. I was communicating to the Article 1 court, because there's two Supreme Courts. But they stamped it received. That's all I know. That's all I need to know. They were given notice.
Mm-hmm.
And so right on the top of my credentials file, if you open that up, the first thing you're going to see, highly sensitive documents. Because why? You got to separate public and private.
And think about this, Mark. Have you ever tried to prove the negative?
No, that's not possible.
But yet you just said you were going to put some shit in that says you weren't this, and that shit wasn't you, and or whatever. You just made claims to the negative.
Oh no, I was going to try and prove the positive. I was going to start working on the whole intent behind it is that I want to start establishing a track record that this is the trust, because there is proof that can be provided to show that it is the trust's name, and that I was going to make a distinction.
You don't need to establish a record that it's the trust name. It's already established. Who's the grantor of the trust? Congress. Who passed the Social Security Act? Congress. Who appointed the trustees? Congress.
So the other part of it is that would be like an initiating event of establishing proof that I am this person, not this living human.
You don't establish it that way. You're got to realize there are state secrets, trade secrets by the system. It's like people come to me and say, well, how should I sign my mortgage documents? I want to go get a home. I say, sign the all caps name. If you understand UCC 3-402 and you understand that is their name, all you're doing is putting the represented person on the document. That doesn't attach it to you. You're protecting trade secrets. Two of the ladies in my groups, both of them in the middle of a court case. Well, one of them, it's actually not hers, it's her husband's. But she's the one in the group doing the learning because he's doing the working. Okay? They both filed papers in the court case after they did an administrative process to the trustees, and the court started addressing them as the general agent for the name. They didn't go free. They did not go and put documentation in the court out into the public exposing the system.
Okay, I
Uh-uh.
get you. I get you. This is a private matter, and it just needs to be kept private. Okay.
You are already in the private. You just haven't come to that realization because you haven't got it in your mind how to separate it.
Yeah.
Because you've used it for so long and said it was you.
Mark, one of the things that's important in all of these things, and this is one that it gets talked about upon occasion, but we don't always mention it, and it's definitely worth mentioning right now because we're going over something that is part of it. You want to stay in honor at all times, and part of staying in honor is giving the claimant an exit strategy. Give them a way out. Give them some remedy. You might be looking for remedy, but they need remedy too. Everybody needs remedy. And if you start to give them, basically, if you personally are cornering them, you are personally then not giving them a way out. This is the reason why I talk about asking questions instead of making claims. Let their answers back them into the corner. Think about it,
Yes.
brother. It is so much more powerful when you just simply ask the questions and then the answers coming out of their mouths do it for you. You're getting the same end result. It's just them doing it for you, you not doing it to them. This way, you are staying in honor, completely 100% in honor, because all you're doing is acting as the king. You are as king. You
Now
are
I want you to
as the
also
king.
think about this. When you learn the principles and you know how to articulate it, then you know how to ask the questions to get the answer you are after. If you watch the
Yes.
video where I talked to the Social Security lady and I asked her, I already knew the answer. I already knew the principles. I said, I want to who owns the name and the account. And she very quickly said, "Oh, we own the number." Well, let me ask you this question, Mark. Have you ever went to any company and created an account, aka account number, that didn't have a name attached to it? No.
No.
You go,
No.
yeah. So that means what? She just admitted without saying it that yes, they own it. She said, "Yeah, we own the number." But at the end of the phone call, when I went further in explaining things and I got her backed into a corner and I re-asked the question, she said, "I don't feel comfortable answering that question." Because why? She knew the ramifications.
Mm-hmm. And see, one of the things too, Mark, that a lot of people miss in all this shit, and especially in so many of these so-called gurus that talk about, oh, you need to file your UCC1 filing, you need to renounce the name, you need to renounce your citizenship, you need to do this, you need to do that. Fuck, no, you don't. Not even close. And part of the reason is this. Mark, let me ask you this. In a general sense, is the basic title of your GovCo agents, people that work for government, is their basic title public servant?
As far as I know.
Okay. Well, if they're the servant, then would that make you the master? Would that make me the master? Would that make Pastor the master?
Well,
Yeah.
that does make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. In a general sense, when in the history of mankind have we ever known the king to have to ask permission of the servants to do anything?
Never.
Ah!
I've
When
had
it,
people
hold on, Pastor.
come to me and say, "I think I'm going to write them a letter asking them, can I do this?" I'm like, "No. You need to know
No,
what to do and then ask your questions accordingly so that way they will be more than happy to tell you what you're missing."
right. Because think about this too, Mark. When in the history of mankind has the servants ever written the rules for the king?
None to that, to the best of my knowledge.
There you go. So it's the king that gets to write the rules. The king gets to write the rules for the servants. He also gets to write a separate set of rules for himself. And can he change any of those rules at any time? You betcha. Oh, and guess this. Can he write a completely separate third set of rules for the queen? Oh, yeah, of course he can. Why? Because it's good to be the king.
Well,
It's good to be the king. And people that start to think in that way, all of a sudden, they're the people that, in fact, I recently had somebody talk about, wanting to know how to gain their sovereignty. You already got it. You're sovereign already as long as you have the right mindset. If you have a slave type mindset, you're not sovereign. If you understand that you are the king, then you are. And it's how you conduct yourself, because kings don't need to be told what to do and how to do it. We don't need a servant's opinion on, well, you can't wear pink today, king, because there's several of us that are offended by the color pink, and so if you wear pink, we're going to throw you in a cage. No. It's not like that. In fact, I believe it was either Winston Churchill or Eisenhower that said something to the effect during the Second World War. There will be those that will govern from within, and there will certainly be those that need to be governed from without.
yeah.
Basically, what they're saying is there's going to be people that take care of themselves, and they know where they know the common law within their heart. They know do not harm or kill. They know do not steal or damage. They know do not commit fraud. Everybody else needs to fucking be told it's not right to hit somebody in the face unjustly. Seriously, there are people that need to be told this is not right because they're too fucking stupid to think on their own.
Now, you know why I start with agency as the fundamental principle? Mark, let me ask you this. What is a state? A state is a stack of papers with an agreed upon contract where the terms are expressed, called a constitution, with an agreed upon border. Now, if you have that stack of papers sitting on your desk, can it do anything?
Nope.
It needs men and women to step into those offices to bring it to life. Now, what are they doing? They're operating as agents, aren't they? So they are what? Sovereign. That's called sovereign immunity. The agent is never liable for the principal. See, we want to go into court and say, well, I'm the sovereign. No, that's not the proper term. You're the agent. Because why? The agent is always sovereign when the agent does follow the rules. They have immunity. But this is also goes to the next principle, why no one is above the law. When the agent doesn't follow the rules, they're no longer in the capacity of agent, they're now in the capacity of belligerent, and they lose their immunity. So they gave you a person, and the Fourth Amendment says what? To be secure from searches and seizures in your effects, plural, papers, plural, houses, plural, persons, plural. Are they saying in that you can own people as slaves? No, only if they're persons through voluntary consent. Then you can own persons. But no, what are they saying? They gave you a person. You haven't got your documentation in order, managing that person properly as agent. So you're not sovereign.
And think about this too, Mark. And this is something that, in case you're not super familiar with contracts, and a lot of people do think that they know contracts, but
I'm working on it.
Well,
yeah, show me the wedding signature. Like that makes the contract.
Yeah, most people think it's all about a piece of paper with ink on it. The contract it has nothing to do with the piece of paper with ink. First and foremost, in order for there to be a contract, there must be an offer. Then there must be acceptance. But then there must be what's known as a meeting of the minds, where two or more people can sit down and discuss, what do you mean by the color orange? What do you mean by the color purple? What do you mean by piece of paper? What do you mean by ink? What do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? You have to go down the line and discuss each and every possibility of that contract. Now, once you're at the end of that conversation known as the meeting of the minds, and everybody has come to an agreement as to what they mean by orange, that moment, at that absolute instance, we now have what is known as formation. Formation is indeed the contract. The contract happens in the mind. The contract does not happen on a piece of paper with ink on it. The piece of paper with ink on it in the contract world, in the legal world, is known as the memorialization. It's memorizing what two or more people have discussed. Now, let me ask you this, Mark. Have you ever in your life heard a piece of paper speak with you such as I am speaking with you now?
No, definitely not.
Okay. GovCo, Bank of America, the County of Orange, the State of Florida. These are all corporations. They're also stacks of paper with ink on it. That's your basic bottom line as to what a corporation is. Everything is contracts. Every code, every statute, every regulation, everything that comes out of a cop's mouth, a DA's mouth, a judge's mouth, these are all offers to contract. But, as you just said, the piece of paper in itself cannot have a discussion. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? Which means that, in a true, legal, valid sense, no contract can ever be had with a stack of paper with ink on it. Okay? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, in a very real sense, there are people that are known as of legal capacity. I am known as to be of legal capacity because I have the ability to discuss what do you mean by orange, and I can come to an agreement between you and I what we mean by orange. But there are also people such as infants and people that are mentally ill that are known as not of legal capacity. And why? Because they don't have the ability to discuss exactly what do they mean by orange. And of course, infants and a lot of mentally ill people don't also probably possess the physical capabilities, the capacity to fulfill those contracts. That being said, and you can look up the maxims of agency, no agent can ever exceed the capacity of the principal for which they are claiming to represent. It is an absolute fact, an absolute maxim, that the agent always follows the principal. The agent never leads, which means that no judge, no DA, no cop, not even the fucking janitor at City Hall can contract with you because no agent can exceed the capacity of the principal for which they are claiming to represent. And if that piece of paper that they are claiming to represent cannot speak with you the same as it never spoke with them to tell them that they actually work for it, which gets into a whole nother thing of how much all these so-called GovCo agents and or really anybody that's ever worked for a corporation is working on hearsay, because they've never heard that piece of paper specifically say to them, you now represent me in all matters concerning this business. Think about it, brother. And this is the world we live in, and we live in it daily. And the reality of this comes down to this, the little legal maxim that we talked about earlier. He who will be deceived, let him. If you think that you can have a contract, a meeting of the minds with a piece of paper with ink on it, you better honor that contract, because you'll be in dishonor if you don't. But
Now,
once you start to realize, well, hold on just a second. I'll be done in just a second here. But once you realize, because we're going to get into one little simple thing here too. Anything and everything that goes unquestioned, unrebutted, or unobjected to is considered to be consented to and are true. But the flip side of that is also true. That as soon as you start to realize something and you start to question something, everything comes to a halt. And you're asking, well, how do I reverse something? Well, especially when it comes to something that never really actually happened, you can't. But one of the best ways to put that train at a complete dead stop and even reverse it and put it back into the station is you simply say, I believe there may have been a mistake. And it starts everything all over. Go ahead, Pastor Irulu.
now, when he said earlier about memorialization, that's what the paper is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I give this example. If you read enough court cases, this is all in the rules of civil procedure too, that the judge, it doesn't matter what you file into court, the motion, if you do a motion, if you do anything, if there is a disposition done where the judge issues an order, it says that the judge has to reduce it to writing so the order memorialized. It's a memorialization of the order, because what's going on in the court, contract negotiations, it don't matter if it's civil or criminal. I had a top attorney in North Carolina ask me one day, he said, well, how good do you think you are at contracts? I said, I think I'm pretty good. I said, because everything is a contract. I don't care if it's civil or criminal. He says, well, I don't agree with that. I said, really, Mike? I said, when you was a defense attorney and the judge asked you questions, did you presume to know what he meant by those words? Or did you ever ask him to define the words? And as soon as I said that, he got it. He said, oh my God, in my 52 years of education and practice, I've never thought of that, much less had it put that way. But he got it. It's all contracts.
Yeah,
That
because
is admiralty jurisdiction on the land and or on the sea. Everything isn't law of the sea. It's the law of commerce. Are you doing private commerce, which is private contracts? Are you doing quasi-public private contracts? Are you doing public contracts? It's all commerce. How are you doing business with the other party involved?
And of course, what made this guy, Mike, the attorney the pastor's talking about, what dawned on him is the fact that, yes, as soon as he asked a judge to define what he meant, he just realized that he was having a meeting of the minds conversation.
Tell him about your probation discussion where about pay and own and all that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, that was a good one. Yeah,
Start with the letter you wrote.
Well, initially they actually sent something called a presentment, or so-called fees and fines, and so I did an A for V, and accepted for value, and I knew that it was going to set them on their fucking ear. I knew they were going to get all kinds of upset. So they got all kinds of upset. So I actually did an administrative process stating that, I was asking to meet the real party of interest and all this other shit. Well, I sent that letter. The probation officer wants to have this conversation about how I claimed that I wasn't going to pay anything. And I said, well, bro, I don't believe I've ever made that comment once. I don't believe I ever actually even used those words. Since you want to use that word, what do you mean by the word pay? This guy goes on for a good 30 to 40 minutes, doing his best to get me to admit to the word pay. He finally comes down to,
Is it me or is Popeye phasing in and out?
I think we're losing him.
Popeye, drop out, come back in.
Hey, so Pastor, while he's doing that, I looked at that minor case, and at the very, very bottom, under footnotes, so that was a separate civil action, but there was a criminal action where supposedly he was
Hey guys,
convicted.
I had a
Popeye, you phased out. We didn't hear nothing you said. Drop out, come back in, Popeye, because your connection's doing weird stuff.
Yeah, no, I had a call come in. Sorry about that, guys. So anyway,
Okay, now.
Yeah. So anyway, back to what happened. The what took place is we had this conversation. He was wanting to get me to admit to pay. So I asked him at one point because he's starting to. Or I take it back. He's asked.
Hey, hang on a second. You may want to go ahead and reinitiate your connection because you're phasing in and out really, really bad. It's going to dead silence and then you're coming back in, and I can tell you're in the middle of speaking, but we're not hearing it.
Okay, let me jump out and I'll jump right back in.
You know, what was you saying, Lance, while he's doing that?
So David Minor, I guess, had a criminal action against him, probably for fraud, right?
Yeah.
So in that case that you sent me, it says that he's claiming to.
Can you hear me now, guys?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I got you.
Anyway, he's claiming to. Sorry, real quick, Pops. Right?
Let's go ahead. No, you're good.
No.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Anyway, so he's claiming to have an appeal going for his criminal conviction, but they used his criminal trial information in the civil suit, which got the injunction put in place. So there's also a criminal action that I guess David Minor was in, and supposedly it went to appeal. So I guess I'll have to do further investigation.
And when I'm not driving, I'll go look up some more on his name and see what else I can find, since there is a civil and a criminal, and see what else I can find.
If you look at the very bottom, the very last page under footnotes, I think it's like 2 or 3, it says that, you know, he's wanting to use, he's claiming that the injunction shouldn't be enforced or granted because he is, what's the word am I looking for? He's projecting, or he's, damn it, what's the word? Anyways, he thinks that his appeal for his conviction is going to be overturned, but he's in the middle, which is, you know, you can't do that. But they said, well, we're not doing it based on the facts of the criminal case. We're doing it based on based on the civil. We're doing it based on the testimony and witnesses in the criminal case or something like that. So there was another separate action and all that. That's why I was getting at.
I'll try to find it and get it sent to you. Now, Popeye, go back and start through the whole conversation with Pay.
Okay, so yeah. So anyway, what I did, they sent me a so-called presentment. I accepted it for value. I knew that they were going to flip out about it, so they did. And when they flipped out about it, I did a administrative process. I sent them notification, basically asking to meet with the real party of interest, whoever was claiming that it wasn't proper to do so, whatever. And so then I end up with this so-called meeting with the probation officer, and he's wanting me to admit to pay. And we go on for about 30 minutes or so, almost 40 minutes. And he asked me this question. He says, so let me ask you this. Let's say that you're going down the road, you're driving a car, and it starts to run out of gas, and what do you do? And I said, well, first and foremost, what do you mean by drive? What do you mean by car? And what do you mean by gas? I swear on a stack of Bibles, I thought this brother had literally been listening in on calls. And of course, Pastor and I have talked about it, that we've probably been infiltrated by GovCo agents.
Yeah, you have to be aware.
Yeah.
Every single one of these groups, but you just automatically assume there are government agents in here.
Yep.
Don't even think. I mean, look, they're monitoring this stuff. Yeah, I already can tell you. I know for a fact that certain three-letter agency is listening in this group because my buddy, whose ex-girlfriend worked for that three-letter agency, knows the conversations. And she called him one night when I had told him about the State National and American State National. I called him and I said, you know that the government's going after those people, right? And he said, what do you mean? And I told him how I knew it. As in, it's all hearsay. It's what I was told. He asks her about it. She says, yeah, how do you know? And he said, oh, a good friend of mine. And she says, who? Los Licos Nomos? And he said his mouth dropped. I texted him back and I said, am I in trouble? He said, no, she called me on her personal phone.
Yeah, so anyway, what happened with me, and this is just kind of confirmation to that, what happened with me is that when I said that to this brother, when I asked this probation officer, he said, okay, well, let me put it this way. You're navigating a mechanical conveyance down strips of asphalt, and you run out of that stuff that makes it go. I damn near peed my pants and started laughing so hard. It's like, oh, my God, this dude's been listening to the calls, or he's up inside my head, one or the other. So anyway, I said, well, I go to that place thinking you get the stuff that makes it go. And he says, well, what do you do when you get there? And I said, well, I put the hose thing in the side of the mechanical conveyance thing in there, in the side thing. And he goes, okay, well, what do you do before you do that? And I said, well, get out of the mechanical conveyance. He says, well, what do you do after that? I said, well, I walk over to the hose thing. And he kept trying to get me to say, I'd go to the little booth, or I put the little piece of plastic in the machine thing, something. He kept trying to get me to this whole thing of pay, and I wouldn't do it. And I recognized right then he was really starting to get stagnant on where he was going to go, because he had pretty much hit his wit's end as to how to get me to admit to something called pay. So I decided to throw the brother a curveball, and I asked the brother, hey, brother, would I have to own something to be able to do this thing called pay that you're asking for? So he asked me, you don't own anything? And I asked him, well, is there any evidence that I do? Well, instead of something saying, well, here's something that's registered in your name. No, he doesn't do that. No, he spends another 10 to 15 minutes trying to get me to the thing called ownership. Comes down to asking me, and looks me square in the eyes, says, well, let me ask you, who owns the clothes on your back? I looked him square in the eyes back, and I said, I'm led to believe God. It was a cool 10 seconds of nothing but silence. It was so goddamn silent you could hear crickets from 5 miles away, bro. And we were inside an office building. You could still hear the crickets from 5 miles away. That's how silent that bro went. Now, the interesting part of this is, no matter how much I would bring up the pay, money, cash, Federal Reserve notes, ownership, any of these other things, that dude would not touch that conversation. No matter how much I tried to drag him back into it, he would keep running away from that conversation. He would not touch it again, and I tried to get him to get back into it. He wouldn't do it.
And a year after that, they sent him a letter and told him the debt was discharged.
Yep, and they used that exact word, discharged.
Nice.
Yeah, imagine that.
This is just different examples of why I say the system is beautifully designed. It's our ignorance that gets us in trouble. Go back to what Popeye said. He said the hose thingy. Okay, that's a general term. It could be a water hose, it could be any kind of hose. But he said hose thing, and he never said, oh, I went to the gas pump. Now he just made a claim. Well, what's a gas pump? Now he's got to define what a gas pump is. See how this works both ways?
That's starting to make sense now.
Well, and this is part of why, too, Mark, so many situations, and especially at any time when I'm dealing with anybody in the public, I don't give a shit if it's a doctor, somebody at the grocery store, whoever, whatever. I speak in hearsay all the time. I'm led to believe, allegedly. I've been informed and now been led to believe. Whatever the case may be. I've been told, I have heard. I never once make the claim, well, this is exactly what it is. No, I've only heard it, and the reality is, unless I've actually experienced it myself, that's all I've done anyway. That's all any of us have done. But so many people want to say, oh, this is what it is, when they don't know for shit. Because just like Einstein said, the only true knowledge is experience. It not only begins there, but it ends there, and everything else is hearsay. Think about it. And of course, this gets into something that's a big issue in criminal law. Eyewitness accounts and or even people within an event and their ability to recollect succinctly exactly what happened. They can't do it. Most of us can't. The game telephone is another example of how things get changed. Your knowledge, your experience is only as good as your ability to recollect it accurately.
Now, let me give you a real world example of this. Let's just say, Mark, that you're one of those really great guys that, yeah, you don't really try to cause any trouble, which I presume that's you. But we'll use
that's not me.
A minor case.
Yeah, I'm just going to interject. Let me just interject real quick. This is actually something that I'm going to have to start practicing, because this is not the type of person I am. I'm one of those guys that likes to work in absolutes, and I don't like vagueness, and I just basically put it all out there up front. So this is actually going to take some practice on my part.
It is going to take practice, but here's the thing. When I explain this, now you're going to understand what is and is not an absolute, okay?
All right.
So let's say, for example, you're one of those great guys. You don't really try to cause no trouble, but you're sitting at home. You got a pound of freaking pot on your table. You're smoking a big fat doobie, and the cops bust in your door. You get arrested for marijuana possession. You go to court, and they got you on the stand. And was you smoking marijuana? And it's like, yep, you caught me. I'll take my little 6-month sentence. Blah blah blah. Well, you just volunteered to go to jail. Yep. How did you volunteer? Do you have firsthand knowledge what marijuana is? No, you don't. Why? You didn't create marijuana. Some scientist created the term marijuana, then they went and copywrote the term to protect their discovery. You're actually in a copyright infringement. That's why you're going to jail. You're using their terminology. What does your Bible say? Well, I'm led to believe my Bible says that God made all the herbs of the field for my use and benefit. That's all you know. The Bible says thou shalt not lie. The only thing you can tell the absolute truth on is what you have firsthand knowledge of.
And this goes right back to it's only as good as your ability to recall it accurately.
So if you go into that court case, and the judge says, the DA says, yeah, was you using marijuana? Sir, what do you mean by that term? He won't define it, I'll tell you that. I've had people in this group, when I've said this exact thing that I'm telling you, they said, you're right, it's cannabis. I said, really? Do you have firsthand knowledge of that?
I even say the so-called cannabis when I'm speaking of that, because again, I don't know for sure. And in fact, this is going to touch on something else that when it comes down to, especially your so-called code statutes and regulations, think about this. The only true law, and this has been well established, even the so-called courts have said this, even though they know that they're fudging on this. The only true law is the common law. And the only true law comes from the basic common logic, the logos. And this is ancient, before anything was written down. From all to all, we all want to be treated as we would treat ourselves and or others. You don't harm or kill, steal or damage. You do not commit fraud. That's all there is. That's the law pertains to man. Now, everything else, code, statute, regulation, is nothing more than somebody's opinion written on a piece of paper. And just because it's somebody's opinion written on a piece of paper and they decided to write the word code, statute, and regulation across the top did not necessarily mean that somebody's opinion automatically applies to you. Because, Mark, if I decide that I don't like the color pink and you like the color pink and you like to wear the color pink, and I say all of a sudden now, because I wrote it on a piece of paper, that the next time I catch you wearing pink, I get to throw you in a cage for 6 months? Really? Because my opinion, really? If it was reversed, I'd be telling you to go fuck yourself, because I'm going to wear pink and I'm going to wear it right on your front porch, bitch. Because your opinion don't fucking apply to me.
Not only that, what if it's pink but you're colorblind? I mean, what color is it to you?
There you go.
I mean, go to 50 Shades of Gray. How many shades of gray are there? Oh, there's 50. So if some legislature writes a law that says that gray is now forbidden, and if anybody that's using gray now has to pay a fine of $500, that statute is vague. Which gray? There's 50 shades. Which one? That's called void for vagueness. It is unconstitutional and unenforceable. Because why? They did not specifically say which gray.
Now think about this too. And this is one of the big ones that most people don't even think about. It just doesn't even occur to them. But if I'm a so-called lawmaker, and I do write this piece of fucking legislation that says that anybody that wears pink or gray or whatever the fuck, okay, I happen to like wearing gray. I write something that says people that wear gray, I'm going to go to jail for the next 6 months. What I have just done with my opinion is I have just created a whole new class of criminal. Everyone that likes to wear gray. Think about that. That's how fucked up this system is. This is also where dumb fucks like to buy into the system and think, oh my God, I can't wear gray anymore because some guy had an opinion and now he put it on a piece of paper and they call it law.
So when you're dealing in absolutes, that's not a problem. The only absolute, look, the Bible talks about how we lie every day. Why? Look how many things we say in the system we have no firsthand knowledge of, but we claim it to be a fact.
Yeah, this actually makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, because when you start digging into everything, it is damn near impossible to prove anything.
There you go, bro. And think about this. I will be the first to say that I'm right there with you. I should say I was in so many ways, because I spent most of my life working as a contractor. And then I went to law school where I thought that, you know, your application of absolutes could still apply. Oh, fuck no. In fact, one of the most interesting conversations with one of the professors happened to be a dean, and this is at Purdue Law School. It's a Purdue online program, but still it's Purdue nonetheless. And for anybody that's wondering, and this goes out to our buddy Nick Kerr, online schools are so much harder than brick and mortar because you don't have the professor right there to give you the hands-on like they get in the brick and mortars. And they also raise the standards on a lot of shit because they know that it's easier for people to get away with a lot of things as well. So they raise
they
the
know that
standards
they
high.
raise the standards because why? They know that you're sitting at a computer, you could cheat.
Yep. But that being said, one of the professors, dean of the third man on the totem pole, associate dean, said in a conversation he was actually talking about a specific case where 3 judges basically ruled differently, essentially saying how you can't get 3 judges to agree that they're drinking coffee while they're standing at the coffee machine in the courthouse drinking from the damn machine. That's how ambiguous the system is. And I said something to the effect of, yes, the ambiguity that I love so much. And this professor, right in lecture class, and it went right over like a lead balloon for all the other students. It's all ambiguous. If it wasn't ambiguous, we would all be looking for something else to do. Think about it, Mark. This professor just said it's so ambiguous that this shit doesn't mean fuck all unless you as a defendant believe it does. Think about it.
Now, you know, here's the one little catch to the ambiguity. You know why you will never get the ambiguity out of the law? Because why? The meeting of the minds. If you're going to study the Bible, okay, should you not use a dictionary of the day that will tell you what the Hebrew, Aramaic, and or Greek words actually meant? Shouldn't you actually study the culture of that day also to find out what they meant by the terms and phrases they use? Yes.
Of course.
Well, if you're going to study the Constitution, shouldn't you know the culture and the dictionaries that the framers used to understand that very document that we say is the most important? Yes.
Of course.
But if you go take it one step further, you didn't write the document. You don't know what they had in their mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, because in spite of the fact that it is, you're analyzing the cultural text of that time and kind of have what you think is a good general understanding, they could have been thinking something completely different when they wrote it.
That's why you can only interpret it to the best of your ability.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, because why? The system says they do believe that everyone has the law written on their heart. They know the general right and wrong. The problem is the people don't realize it. So they're going into court, they're lying, they're making claims, they're doing all this stuff. They think they're the name. They're committing perjury because they say, yep, that's my name. And they're sitting there doing all these things and wondering why they're getting slapped around.
Mm-hmm. Think about this too, Mark. This is hopefully help find. Let's go back to the Shades of Grey, like Pastor was talking about. 50 Shades of Grey, great book and movie, great conversation or topic of conversation because sex indeed is a contract. It absolutely is a contract because you got to think about this. 2 or more people are implying quietly, silently, that they're going to all be satisfied when it's all done. It's a contract. Think about it. But that being said, if I write a piece of legislation, the word gray in it, okay, and I know that there's 50 shades of gray. I'm sure there's actually probably more, but just for the sake of conversation, I've got 50 shades of gray to choose from. I'm actually thinking of the darkest shade of gray when I write this piece of legislation that ultimately becomes law.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing this, have I already deceived most people knowing that most people are going to think of a medium shade of gray by writing and thinking of the darkest shade when I write this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have, haven't I? And of course, the only people that haven't been deceived are the ones that are thinking of the darkest shade of gray with me. Everybody that's thinking at least one shade lighter is at least 2% deceived. The guy that's thinking the lightest shade, he's completely deceived. Now, on the flip side of this, and what I've really done here is I've given my prosecutors the flexibility to continue to win case after case after case, because all they have to do to win is they have to think of a shade darker than the defendant, and they're closer to the truth than the defendant. Think about it.
That's why the system is designed that they really can't convict you without you convicting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because why? Out of the heart comes the issues of life. That's why you go through an examination and a cross-examination. One is from what your recollection is of the mind, and the other side is the subconscious. Well, guess what? If you're double-minded, you're going to lose.
Gotcha.
Does your conscious and subconscious line up? If you do, you're not double-minded, and you are holy before the eyes of God.
And there's
That's
two
pretty
things.
deep.
Well, think about this too, Mark, because there's a couple of extensions to that. First and foremost, who can be a better witness against you than you?
No one.
Well, literally no one.
No one. Exactly right. And think about this. Is everything that's ever happened to you, if you to be honest with yourself, not me, not Pastor, no one else on this call, but being honest with yourself, is it true that everything that's ever happened to you in your life has all been results of decisions that you've made?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Because no matter what, if you go to a party, you're wearing your nicest shirt, you're sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden some wine gets spilled on it, are you culpable for that shirt getting
Of course.
ruined? Of course
You
you are,
didn't have
because
to wear the shirt.
you didn't have to go to the party, you didn't have to sit on the couch. Those are all decisions that you made. But think about this, bro. On the flip side, if you decided not to go to the party, you stayed home and a plane falls out of the sky and lands on the house and kills you, are you still culpable for that too? Yes, you are, because you should have gone to the party then, maybe. You know, it's one of life's little twists that no matter how you slice it, we're all culpable for everything that's ever happened to us, because it's all a result of a decision that we made. Everything is a decision that we've made.
And because
And
you
this
don't
is part
know
of
that,
why I help you a better witness against ourselves. Go ahead, Pastor.
and because you don't think that way, the system uses your own mindset against you. That's why the battlefield, and if you really understand the Bible and what the devil is doing, don't you remember the old cartoons? You have the devil on one shoulder, the angel on the other. Where's the battlefield at? The battlefield is in the mind. The meeting of the minds.
Yep.
That's good.
I sat there the other day with my assumed name certificate in my home state of North Carolina, and I told you I got my credentials and identification documents, right?
Mm-hmm.
I already set up the business structure, done the assumed name certificate in Minnesota, did it in the state of North Carolina. When I take my documents into the state of North Carolina, into the Register of Deeds, the lady looks at my papers. First mistake I made on the paper was I put the all caps name on the top line, because you can put up to 5 assumed names. On the second line, I put last, comma, given. She says, are you registering 3 names? I said, no. Why? Because that comma is a separator. Oh. I said, you got some white out? Let me fix that. So I ended up having to rewrite the entire document by hand, and I fixed it. But when I handed it to her the second time, the handwritten one, I can't register. I can't record this. The name, is that your name? No, she said, is that your last name? I said, ma'am, that is my name. I didn't agree with her term. I said, that is my name. What did I put on the signature line? My given name, comma, pastor. My given name and my official title. She says, I can't record this because the names don't match. I said, ma'am, yes, you can. She gets on the phone, calls her superior. Her superior says, oh no, he can do that. he can use whatever name he wants as an assumed name. They don't have to match. So what did I do? That's another piece of my file to show the separation, because the only thing the courts can truly see is what's on paper. I told that to a guy one time. He said, that's not true. You can go into court and testify. I said, how about you try to appeal the case without transcripts and see how far you get? See, when you start knowing who you are and you start getting your documents together, guess what? Now you become the sovereign, because you are the agent for that person to operate in commerce. Now you have sovereign immunity, just as long as you follow the law and follow the rules.
That makes sense.
And so many people out there are looking for a quick fix to fix their problem. So that way, if they're able to fix their problem, they can go right back to being a heathen instead of learning how to act honorably with this system that whatever God you believe in gave us. So, and God says what? We are to be good stewards, not owners. Own nothing, yet control everything.
Little pieces of puzzle.
Ownership brings liability. Why do you want the liability? That's why you're being taxed. You're claiming to own everything. And God, the Bible says what? God owns it all. And God instituted government to punish the wicked. So you're claiming to own it. You're claiming to be your own God. Ain't that a sin? That's what happened in the Garden of Eden. Oh, eat of the fruit. You will be like God, knowing good and evil. And you got these gurus out there saying, ye are gods. Didn't Jesus say it in his own words? Yeah, but what is he quoting? He's quoting Psalms 82, and he told the fallen angels, ye will die like men. So what are you doing? It's the same old story since the garden. Man wants to be God because only God can own everything. And you're wondering why you're being punished. The government is protecting God's interests. Now you can question in which God.
And this is why I harp on being claimant so much, because man claims everything. Ownership of this, ownership of that. And I can assure you that until you can get rid of that claim of ownership, God is not going to let you into heaven, because He's not going to let a bunch of people in there claiming ownership of heaven. He's not going to let that happen. Go talk to Boris or some dude in this group. Talk to him about his viewpoints on getting into heaven. Oh, you will, if you're a claimant, you will never get there, and you will suffer the consequences thereof.
Guess what Boris told a guy one time about the name? He said, I don't know what my name is. My Bible says that God will give me that white stone in that day that has my name on it that no one knows. I haven't received my white stone yet.
Mm-hmm.
And don't you have a First Amendment right to your beliefs?
Yep. Yep.
Oh, that's so good.
My dad did a job. My dad does plumbing installation, dishwashers, hot waters, faucets. He works for the box stores, got his own private unincorporated business trust. And he goes into this guy's house. He's a retired state trooper. He teaches LEO classes on the sovereign citizen movement. My dad uses his own personal, that I printed. Some people in this group, you can go through my pictures. It'll be way down the list, and I show a picture of the plate. Exempt plates. He's been running that way for almost 6 years with no tickets.
I've had conversation with his brother.
Yeah. He goes to this guy's house, and the guy sees the plate. He won't have talked to my dad. Because why? He's seeing Dad as a sovereign citizen. Dad is being honorable to this guy, trying to strike up a conversation and doing the work. The guy, when my dad gets ready to leave, he looks at my dad and says one thing. He said, I'm going to tell you this one thing, sir. He said, when you go to court, the judge just wants to know what you believe. I said, Dad, I've been telling you, the First Amendment is first for a reason.
Mm-hmm. And of course, that whole sovereign citizen shits and giggles. That
Yes, it is.
It is shits and giggles. It really is. It's funny, but the reality of all that is too, is that when it comes to these GovCo agents, in fact, if you look up the video of a lady by the answers to the name Sherry Peel Jackson, go look up her video on the IRS and how she ended up resigning from the IRS. She states in one of the videos that she's got up there how the pamphlet and her training were actually the opposite of what the codes state. That she had been trained to basically break the law. That she was essentially going after people that were doing things that were actually kosher to do, and she was realizing as she was going through this handbook, her field handbook, that she had basically been trained to utilize when she was out going after people. It was completely wrong. A while back, I saw a so-called PDF that was supposed to be for the FBI agents, and it was on this actual subject of sovereign citizens. And I started reading through this. Now, could I confirm that this was actually on the FBI website? No, I can't. Not specifically. But when you go in and type it in, if you go FBI sovereign citizen, what I kept coming up with is page no longer exists, which means that it did. And what this PDF says in reality is everything that so-called sovereign citizens have been led to believe through their studies of the system, that the United States of America is in bankruptcy, and they're in their fourth or fifth now, some shit like that. It's fucking crazy, insane. Nobody could ever get away with shit like that. They have all these other so-called beliefs that, not only is the government bankrupt, but money, Federal Reserve notes, have no value. Well, they don't. I got something from the from the International Monetary Reserve that says fiat currency is worthless. The only reason it works is because people believe it will.
Now.
Hang on just a second. I got to step away from the mic for a minute, but I'm going to turn the volume up so I can still listen. I just wanted you guys to know, so in case I don't respond.
Okay.
Now, okay, that's fine. Now let's deal with the bankruptcy. The Congressman Traficant admitted in Congress and anybody can go find the video. It's on C-SPAN. People say, "Oh, you're taking it out of context." No, I understand what somebody says pretty well. He says that we are the trustees of the largest bankrupt entity in the entire history of the world, the United States government, and we are in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Go study the bankruptcy rules. Under Chapter 11, you get to do what's called a reorganization. Now, go Google search United States Statutes at Large. Look for the link called govinfo.gov, and this right there that's got the statutes at large for anybody to go read. Scroll to the bottom of the list, starting in 1951. Now, is that when it started? No, that's just for that website. LOC.gov, go back to 1933 and start coming forward. You'll find the same thing. But when you get to the 1951 tab, hit the little plus button and expand it. What do you see at the bottom of the list? Reorganization. Go to 1952. What do you see? Reorganization.
You're also under martial law.
Well,
martial law goes back to Lincoln.
Something that you touched on earlier, Pastor, but you didn't really fully come out and say it. Both of Articles of Confederation and the Constitution are declarations of bankruptcy. Read them. The only reason the Constitution was actually written is because they realized that it didn't encompass enough things. It wasn't quite complete enough. That's why the Constitution was written. But that being said, something that most people don't realize either is that the Articles of Confederation are still in play. There's something known as the enabling. There's something known as the enabling clause that happens to go along with all documents of that type. And the enabling clause means that when something else is written, such as the Constitution, it does not negate the Articles of Confederation. It didn't eliminate them. It didn't repeal them. It just built on the strength of the Articles of Confederation. So the Constitution was built on the strength of the Articles of Confederation, which means that the Articles of Confederation are still in place.
Actually, the Constitution was the Declaration. The organic laws of the United States are this: the Declaration of Independence, 1776, Articles of Confederation, 1777, Treaty of Paris, 1783, the Northwest Ordinance, backtrack, the Ordinance of 1780, no, that would be right, 1783, the Northwest Ordinance, 1787, and the Constitution, 1789. That is actually our organic documents. That is the law of the land.
One slight correction or addition. There's the Treaty of Peace of Versailles of 1782, and then the one of 1783 that you mentioned. So there's those two in that one. So, but everything else is exactly right. And of course, we could really even go back to the Magna Carta, 1215, because that's essentially what everything else is based on, is the Magna Carta.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I had a family member that has since come back and said, sorry, hey, love you. And, geez, never realized that what you just said was actually true. But it's like with everything else. The enabling clause means that even the fucking, the Magna Carta is still in play right here in the United States of America.
People want to go in and argue in court about the 13th Amendment passed by Lincoln and that administration. That's a restatement of the law called the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. If you want to use the right citation, use the right law.
Yep.
Now, somebody said martial law. Yes, I know Lincoln did the Lieber Code. It's still in force and effect. Yep. But here's the other thing. Take that back to the Constitution. The government puts out a book called the United States Constitution with analysis and interpretation to tell you the who, what, when, where, and how of that document. Who it applies to, how it applies, when it applies, where it applies, everything. But people continually think we, the people of the United States, is us. No, it's not. Go to your state constitution. It says we, the people of the state of. Who's that? We, the people of the United States, is our representatives that created a compact back in the day. They were one party to the contract. The other party to the contract was the federal government. That's in reality, when Biden got on TV and said, we, the people, are the government, he told the truth. As much as I hate to say it, he did.
And of course, some of the proof of this, for anybody that's curious, go look at the Constitution. You don't have to read the whole thing on this port. What I'm talking about specifically is go to the last line where it says, in witness whereof we hereunto subscribe, not sign, subscribe our names. But go back to the original word. In witness. If you understand contracts, witnesses to a contract are not parties in interest to the contract. This is the difference between somebody that is standing at the side of the pool versus somebody that is in the pool? Is there a big, huge difference between somebody in the pool versus somebody that is simply at the pool? Yes. The people at the pool are witnessing the people that are in the pool. And
And
there's nobody that ever signed as an obligor to that contract. They all signed as witnesses.
Hey, you don't you subscribe to Netflix?
Oh, you betcha.
They
Oh, you betcha.
subscribe to the United States. Did they get a subscription?
Oh, you betcha. And it just slings right on over people's heads and they don't even get it. Yeah. This is why I laugh at this stuff, because it is so simple. It's so right in your face. And of course, one of the biggest things with all this that most people think, government's screwing us, they're doing this. No, they're not. No, they're not. Like we talked about earlier, you're doing it to yourself. And part of the reason is because in order for government to stay in honor, in order for them to stay in business, they must have full disclosure. And they have. They have told us all exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it. There's nothing nefarious about that. Now, does that mean that the individual politicians and or bureaucrats won't lie through their teeth and or have been trained to think the opposite? Because we just talked about two different scenarios where the GovCo agents are being trained to believe the opposite of what is actually true. So even if they don't know that they're operating illegally, they still are. But that's beside the point. GovCo, in a general sense, is honorable because it in itself as an entity has disclosed everything. And in fact, as in just a little example, everything. And there's a little example of how there is no obligation as to when, where, how, or any other form or fashion of the disclosure. Think of this. Is the, say, Congress and or the Senate, is there what is known as the right wing and the left wing? Oh, yes, there is. And why? There's a bird, because it's a bird. And what is the symbol of the American federal government? But could it be? Oh, wait, here it comes. The American bald eagle. It's a bird. And whenever in the history of mankind has ever a bird flown with just one wing? Or whenever in the history of mankind has a bird flown with both wings not flapping in unison? Never. Has it ever flown with one wing broken? Never. So does that mean that even though they will tell you each and every fucking minute of the goddamn day that they are at odds, they are at war, that there is a left wing and right wing dissension and they are not working together because them fucking Democrats, them fucking Republicans, fucking, yum, 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 yum. Bullshit.
You know, God don't need a dam. He can walk on water, by the way.
Yeah, damn, Skippy, right? But the reality of it is this. We just said it. A bird cannot fly without having both wings flap in unison, and this bird lifts off every fucking day. Think about it. There is full fucking disclosure right there that they're lying to you every day in public about how they don't get along. It's always this guy or that guy that's fucking up the vote for whatever reason, and we can't get things done because the other guys. Bullshit. Think about it. That fucking bird cannot fly every day like it does if those wings weren't flapping together.
Now, see, everybody listening, this is why I keep saying, when you start grasping these principles of agency, contract, all this stuff, everything starts making sense.
Mm-hmm.
You will start seeing it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, Dawn, some of y'all know Wolverine. You're in her book reading club. Okay. She sent me a message, said, we finally finished The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1. I said, so let me ask you a question. I said, what you've been learning in my classes? I said, do you see it? She said, oh my God, I see it everywhere now.
Yeah, and the stuff's hard to unsee. Once you start to see it, it's hard to unsee. I can assure you guys right now, even though Olive Oil and I've been together for 40 plus years now.
You married her. She just tolerates you.
Yeah, I know, but she loves me for it. But anyway, as it stands, I've been learning this shit now. Well, Pastor and I have known each other going on 10 years, something like that. Somewhere in there,
Yeah.
9-10 years. And I've been learning this stuff for about 10 years, and he's been learning it for a few years more. She is just now, over the last couple of years, and especially around Rona, when everybody was on lockdown and couldn't go out anywhere, her and the daughters decided, well, let's just start looking up what Dad's been saying and see what we can find out. And lo and behold, they started realizing, oh, shit. Not only was Dad right, but on our own studies, we started finding all this other stuff. And, oh, shit, this is something that Dad hadn't even mentioned. We should ask Dad about this. And, of course, they go and ask me. Yeah, I know about that. I just hadn't mentioned it. But good for you finding that shit, too. So now she's actually at this point. In fact, she was still kind of on that teetering on the fence a bit about some of these things. So much so that last year, just before I decided to go ahead and fire off the first notice to the mortgage company, she says, why would you run the risk of losing this place? Why wouldn't we just continue to make the so-called payments? I sat her down and said, look, babe, this is it. You need to look at this. You need to look at this. She went, oh, okay, I see it now. Ever since then, it's really the amount of eye-opening and awakening that she's experienced in just the last year has been exponentially great. And in fact, it's funny because every once in a while now she'll start throwing something out that basically the words that I would be using. I was like, oh, good,
My wife,
good.
Yeah, my wife don't get into this stuff. She hears it from me all the time. And my wife has said, I don't really understand it, but she said, I have seen some things that don't make sense to me. And I would say Olive Oil started out the same progression. She had seen things that don't make sense because why? It doesn't go with what we've been taught.
Yep.
And then eventually you get to the point, my wife finally has gotten to the point where when she went and tried to get a job at Dollar General, which she did temporarily, she said, honey, how should I fill out this W-4? Because she knows, she hears me talk about it, and she knows I always produce documentation for everything I say. And I tell people exactly what to read and where it's at, that she's getting to the point that occasionally she will say, honey, how should I do this? Olive Oil just had to go through the same progression.
And like I've told her too, I said, as it stands, for as much as I am saving you an awful lot of footwork, having to go through and learn everything that I have learned, you still need to know enough about who you are as a player in the game. You still need to learn things such as endorsements and a few other things along the way. And why? Because what if something happens to me and I'm no longer here? And now you're just left. You got all this shit set up all nice and neat and tidy while I'm here. But then I disappear, and now all of a sudden it falls apart, and you lose everything because you don't know how to keep it together. Oh, fuck that. I didn't go through all this shit just to let it all fucking disappear just because. No. The reason why I wrote a trust is because so it didn't start to fall apart. But you need to know enough to know how to continue. And if you don't, okay, well, then you're screwing yourself. You're screwing yourself.
That's the reason I keep saying, look, go back to the Garden of Eden. Who sinned? Eve did. What did Adam do? Remain silent. Well, what's going on in the hospital? Eve is going down to the prenatal visit, signing a contract with the hospital to give the infant over to the hospital, not the baby. Not the baby. The infant and the baby are not the same thing. So Eve is giving the infant over. Adam is derelict in his authority and his duty and not proclaiming his property. When it comes, Adam is still silent. So guess what? Because man has been derelict in his duty, our women are having to fight battles they should have never had to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
I knew you'd pop up.
Can you help me?
Oh, reconnect.
I'm in my
you're gonna
battle.
Start stirring up trouble. Girl, you're going to stir up
Thank
trouble.
you so much.
I know you are.
Thank you, Pastor.
You are welcome,
well,
ma'am.
Okay, Popeye, you guys both have to help me. So today I just got the second letter. Are you ready for me to talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
He said, okay, remember I asked what is, he said, legal tender issued by the Federal Reserve. So I sent the first letter back. What do you mean by legal tender issued by the Federal Reserve? So I just got it out of the mailbox. So I'm so excited you're on. Legal tender is defined by Black's Law Dictionary as the money, quotations, bills, and coins approved in a country for the payment of debts, the purchase of goods, and other exchanges of value. In other words, U.S. currency. You may make a payment by cash, check, credit card, or debit card. Payment options are in person or call the number. Now what do I do, boys? What do I read? What's my next question? This will be the third letter.
What do you mean by cash, check, credit card, et cetera, et cetera? And you could probably also put in there 31 USC 5118.
What do you mean by pay?
I mean, because...
Can you say that again?
Well, he said...
US
hold on. He gave you a definition out of Black's Law Dictionary, and then he made a proclamation. He said you can make a payment by what?
Cash, check, credit card, or debit card.
What are those terms? What does he mean by those? And if you want to throw him a caveat...
I do.
Throw in 31 USC 5118.
Yep. Because what does he mean by pay? Title 31, Section 5118 says no debts can be paid. They can only be discharged. And they do it very confusingly because it turns around and says, upon payment, dollar for dollar. Payment. It says no debts can be paid.
That was USC.
It says USC Title 31, Section 5118.
5118. Okay, thank you.
That's the gold clause. That was what they did back in 1933 that said that they cannot demand payment in any certain species. That's why when Mark went into court and that he let the judge find him guilty on the ticket, he said, "Thank you, Your Honor. Now that matter's been settled, what do you mean by dollar?" "Oh, money." "No, Your Honor, what do you mean by money?" "Well, U.S. currency." "What do you mean by U.S. currency?" And at that point, the judge is getting up out of his seat, and as he runs out of the courtroom, he says, "You know how to handle this, Mr. Garrett." On his pouch, he had a pouch on his belt that had a dollar symbol on it. He goes out to the clerk, reaches in his pouch, pulls out a handful of rice, and says, puts it on the counter and says, "Keep the change."
Yep.
They said, "You can't do this. We're going to have you arrested." He said, "Really? You're not a party to the contract. If the judge comes out here and tells me that I can't do it, then maybe you got something. Why don't you go get the judge?" Guess what they ended up doing? They took it.
Imagine that. And could it be that's exactly the same reason why when I walked into the courthouse a couple Fridays ago, and I'll be doing it again, I got a little suitcase, one of them little roller suitcases full of 24 pounds of rice. And am I automatically figuring that I'm going to get them to agree to rice? No. It's just one of those things that if I get them to be ambiguous about it, I'm going to throw the 24 pounds of rice at them and go, well, here you go. And if they refuse it, then I'm going to just simply point to, what is it, UCC 3-603, tender of payment, where it says specifically that if tender has been offered and it is refused, there is discharge to the extent of the amount offered. I'm going to be offering the entire amount.
Reconnect. You could go freaking, I don't know if you grow chickens and eggs, but I'm just using it as an example. You go out to your little chicken coop and you go get a dozen eggs and you write $200 on that dozen eggs. Is it worth $200? Yes, because you said it was. You could walk that in and pay the tax bill if it's $200. If they deny the tender, the debt's discharged. That's why you have to take them to small claims court to actually beat them on it. That's what the purpose of the letter writing's for. You're building your case.
So I'm going to have to go to court? I just ask for a discharge?
Maybe not. I'm just saying, if it comes to that, you got your paperwork. If you are asking them the little questions one at a time, and then they make the wrong admission, and they agree with one of your terms about legal tender is, let's say, for example, well, my understanding is legal tender is anything of value, and they come back and say, yes, that is true. Oh, guess what? Then you take in a freaking dozen eggs and write the dollar amount on it. Now it's something of value. And if they don't accept it, now you can take them to small claims court and ask them why, and the debt has to be discharged because the law says so.
Well, and the reality of this is this as well. In the world of contracts, there is nothing that says that consideration has to be anything specific either. It can be anything legal.
That's why we have court cases that said a single peppercorn was considered lawful and valuable consideration because at that time a peppercorn was valued at 1 cent.
And nobody, if I have a house that I want to trade for a peppercorn because I got a steak on the barbecue and I want that steak to taste yummy, and I got
what'd you do? Walk away, Popeye?
They got a peppercorn. Can I trade the house for a peppercorn? Oh, you bet you I can. And there's nobody in this world that can tell me otherwise. Why? Because I could also just gift the damn house to somebody. I can just give it to them, hand them the keys, and say, here you go. Enjoy the fuck out of it because I don't want it anymore. It is yours. So if I decide that I want to hand those keys over for something bigger than a little black peppercorn that's going to make my steak taste yummy, yes, I can.
I think Popeye's headset went dead. He doesn't know it. So
can you define it easier?
Do what?
Can you define it so I can get it into a couple of sentences?
I told them to ask the questions. Take their words out of their document. What did it say? Please make
Black's Law
payment. And it said, oh, yeah, the definition of legal tender is they give you the Black's Law definition. Okay, that's fine. What does it say in the definition?
The money, in quotations, bills and coins.
What's a bill?
What's a bill?
Yeah. Did they not send you a bill?
I'm pretty sure that every time I get that piece of paper, it has the so-called company's name that's called the cable company. They call that thing a bill. Yeah, it's a bill.
Didn't they send you a bill? They just told you, oh, it said thank you. Well, if you make a copy of the bill and on the back, endorse it, pay to the order of the tax commission or whatever they're called, sign it, put the taxpayer ID on it, and say, please accept my remittance of payment, since by your definition, a bill is considered legal tender. Endorse it, send it back to them. Now, if they write you back and say, we can't accept this, no, we can't do that, you just made a tender based on their words.
Yep.
I'm going to have to use that.
On that paper? Does it not say on the paper, reconnect? Doesn't it say on any of the original instruments that they sent you saying that you owed this money? Does it have anywhere on that document the word bill?
No.
Then, okay, write them a letter and say, okay, please send me a bill. Please send me a true bill of this debt so I can settle the matter. Oh, they're going to send you a document, if they do it, that's going to have the word bill on it. Hey, send me a bill with a payment voucher, please. I'm waiting for the bill. When they get, okay, so now when they send you a bill, flip it over on the back, endorse it, send it back to them, say, please accept my remittance of payment according to our agreement, because you said in Black's Law definition, a bill or coin is payment. Here's the bill. See what they say. You're doing everything according to what they say. The problem is people need to quit acting in fear and be willing to take their ass to court.
Yep.
And
the whole reason why I did everything I did.
And look the judge dead in the eye and say, Your Honor, here's their papers. They told me that a bill is considered payment. I sent them a bill. What's he going to do? He's going to have to look at him and say, you idiot, what did you do? You're going to have to discharge it now.
Yep. Same thing with me when I decided over a year ago that I was going to start writing notices to the mortgage company. I knew, and in fact, y'all could ask Olive. She's somewhere around the house here somewhere. You can ask her.
Small claims court is your best friend.
Well, mine not even in small claims. Mine's in regular court.
Well, I know yours is in regular court because it's a little bit higher value amount, and that's where you filed it at. But small claims court can be your best friend because why? That's mano y mano in front of a judge. You don't have to worry about all these fancy procedures. You just go in there and talk man to man to the judge and say, look, Your Honor, I've wrote them letters and asked them how to define this and how to define that. And they told me on this document, according to Black's Law definition, that a bill or coin is, and in this section they said this. Well, I agreed with them. I just endorsed the bill and sent it back to them as payment.
Yep.
So what they sent me originally, are you saying it needs to have the word bill on it? Because here's what it says. It says, please return this form with your payment.
Okay.
Somebody's mic's open.
Then you tell them to send you a bill. Because tell them the document you originally sent me is a form. Doesn't it say a form?
No form. It just says, Did I say it said form? Yeah, yes, maybe it does. Okay. Popeye, can you shut your mic? It's echoing on my end. Please.
I hate to interrupt real quick. Is the playback for this going to be available?
I would have been meaning to ask Popeye if he started the recording. Somebody started the recording.
I did. Yes, me. I did.
Send me the video when you get it, by the way.
I will. Yep.
I'll put this on YouTube.
I'm recording it. And Yeah.
This conversation. Everything I've heard up to this point is just absolutely amazing. Like everybody and their brother needs to hear this.
Hey, I've got a whole freaking YouTube channel of conversations like this.
Awesome. I'm going to track it down.
I'll send
So
you my link tree, by the way, so that way you can track
And of
all my
course,
platforms down.
go to Street Legal Thinking on YouTube, and on there you will find a plethora of recordings with me and these people calling themselves creditors. A bunch of them. And there's a bunch of other stuff in there too, covering a lot of the things that we've talked about today. But yeah, you want to start learning about who you are as a player in the game and how to deal with these people. And everything that you hear there is going to be exactly the same as how you deal with a so-called GovCo agent. Exactly the same. No difference.
Now, Mark, mute your mic, please. Popeye, so Reconnect can talk for a minute.
Thank you. So it says, please return. This was the original. Please return this form with your payment. Total amount due is the amount printed beneath the month in which you pay.
Okay, then write them a letter back and say, hey, I haven't received a bill. I received a form. And under Black's Law definition, 11th edition, a form is not a bill.
Although, and one of the things that is being bantied about in this right at the moment, but that is the fact that anything that they do send you that is a so-called statement or a form is also known as a presentment. A presentment can be turned into a negotiable instrument simply by endorsing it.
That is true, but what we're doing is writing them letters to trap them in their own words.
Oh, for sure. No, and believe me, well, you know that I understand that. If there's anybody in this call that understands that one, it's me. Because, yeah, that's absolutely imperative that you have to get them. You have to get them to say it because it's in their words that are going to basically back themselves into the corner, not you doing it.
Hold on, Reconnect. I'm going to drop it in the group. Give me a second. Second. See, they use Black's Law definition in their writing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have the option to do the same. It says, what is a form? Number one, the outer shape, structure, or configuration of something as distinguished from its substance of matter. Number two, established behavior or procedure. Number three, a model. Number four, customary method of drafting legal documents. So did they tell you when it's a form? That means what? It's a legal document. Number five, a legal document with blank spaces to be filled in by the drafter. That's a form. So I'm going to drop it in the chat. You do the same thing they did. Said, okay, thank you. According to your last communication, a tender of payment, according to your last letter, would you please send me a bill? Because the only thing that you have sent me was a form.
Got it. Now it's making sense. Awesome.
And you can take this right here and copy that to your letter. Pick whichever definition. You don't have to pick it all because they didn't say they didn't say a form. They said a bill. Okay. So you want to be careful how you word it because They might know what you're trying to do. They might not. It's going to be based on what you say. Okay. But just very vaguely say, just sit there and say, hey, what you originally sent me says it is a form, and a form is defined as, pick one of the definitions, and then say, would you please be so kind and send me a bill? Then when they send you a bill, if they send you back a letter that says, and they send you a copy of that form with a letter that says, this is your bill, staple the documents together, because what is that? That's called an allonge. And endorse the back of it. Say, please accept this bill. I'm in agreement with you. This is a bill.
So when you endorse it, I know I have on a video where it said just pay to the order of the U.S. Treasury. All I do is just sign my name. I don't do any of that stuff, right?
I would say I would not pay to the order of the U.S. Treasury. I would pay to the order of them, sign the name and the taxpayer ID.
Think
Which
about
is my
this,
social.
Reconnect. Whenever, if you're going to be writing a check to, say, Montgomery Wards, would you write it to pay to the order of the Treasury or to Montgomery Wards?
Got it.
Now, see, this is one of those little weird things. In fact, we were talking about Brandon Joe Williams earlier, and his thing on endorsements is he endorses it to himself. What the fuck? You don't take a check down to Sears to get a fucking lawnmower and then write the check and put to pay to the order to yourself. You put to pay to the order of Sears. The fuck?
Yeah.
This is part of why, again, that's another one of those examples of somebody that's giving out a lot of good information and then giving out a bunch of shit.
Now, you make sure you got copies of all your documents, and once you get them backed into a corner like that, and then they want to give you pushback, then you freaking give them a notice of intent to sue and take them to small claims court. You produce your files to the judge in small claims court and say, look, I agreed with their terms. They said this, they said that. I didn't dispute it. I was trying to act honorably and settle the matter. They were telling me how to do it. I mean, even on this page, they said a bill or coin in Black's Law definition. So I had them send me a bill. They said this form was a bill. I said, okay. So I endorsed it. The judge is going to have to side with you. Because why? It's presumed by the system that you know right from wrong. You have the law written on your heart. You're just giving them the every ability to give you what you need. If you want more proof of that, talk to Baby Girl and her experience in her present court case because of what me and Popeye's been telling her how to do things. She can tell you the stuff she's been going through, and she is laughing her hind end off. She has turned things around so much. They've asked her, are you going to invoice us?
Oh yeah, they tired of me. They tired of me.
Yeah, they're not gonna want to mess with Baby Girl too much longer because she's just fucking it all up, and they got her. She got them so twisted up they don't know which end is up.
Oh no! Look, I spoke to the mental health attorney yesterday, and she was like, "Oh, you got us nervous." I said, "Well, what you mean by nervous?" She's like, "I'm not gonna throw this with you, not today." I said, "Oh, well, what you mean by today?" And all I heard was a click.
I'll tell you what. I loved it when you told me about how you walked out of the courtroom and go, "I'm a liar," and they're like, "What? I'm a liar? What?" Well, they asked me if I knew this prosecutor. I don't know her. They asked me if I knew the judge. I don't know. It's just some guy in a black robe. How do I know him?
Yeah,
That's great shit right there. That's awesome.
No, the funny part was when the DA asked me, "Well, do you see a judge?" And my dumb ass said, "Yeah, I see a title." How the fuck do you see a title?
Yep.
Excuse my language. I'm sorry, Pastor.
Yeah. So
I was like,
reconnect
oh.
now.
I said, oh, I'm
Yes,
more
sir.
slow than I thought.
Yes, sir.
So reconnect. Is it making sense yet?
It is. It is. So I'm really just restating what they told me, and then I'm asking them to send a bill. But then I have to pick one of those things, and I'm feeding back to them the black laws. I'm not going to state them all. Maybe a couple, or just pick the
I mean,
one.
look, you can pick. Personally, if I was reading through it, I said, was it number 4? It wasn't the last one. It was the one before that. I said that one right there makes sense. They sent you a form. What is that? The drafting of a legal document. That form they sent you is a legal document. Why? If they have to take you to court to seize the property, they're going to use that as evidence. That makes it a legal document. So look, I need you to send me a bill because the only thing I've got is titled that it's a form. And in Black's 11th, it says a form is a legal document. So please send me a bill.
But he's
Okay?
referring to bills. He's referring to bills as the notes, the Federal
I don't
Reserve.
care what he refers them to. What is a bill?
You're
What's
right. That's
Hey,
that's
it's
right.
not his understanding, it's your understanding. So write him a letter back and said, well, please send me a bill. Bills is plural. Why does it say bills plural? Because how many different types of notes and instruments are there out there to settle something? You've got government obligations, you've got notes, you've got promissory notes, you've got securities, you've got bankers' acceptances, you've got drafts, you've got all this stuff written out in the law. They're all bills.
This would also apply to a statement that they sent, wouldn't it?
Yes, it
Well,
would.
I'm looking at that definition right there.
Hold on. You are the registered agent for the estate. Okay. What is the duty of a registered agent? To forward all notices, all demands, and all processes to the principal, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is your notice? The statement. What is your demand? The coupon. Because what is a coupon in Black's 11th? A demand for payment at some certain time.
And a voucher can also be defined as a coupon.
So when they said in the definition, oh, bills or coins, okay, please send me a bill.
So I've got a county tax statement for my wife that I'm looking at right now, and it literally says Polk County tax statement right across the top.
What is a statement? A statement is a notice. It's not a bill.
Yeah, I'm looking at the definition. It says an allegation, a declaration of matters of fact, blah blah blah, so on and so forth, from Black's Dictionary.
Okay.
I looked it up online, so probably the first or second edition.
Okay, yeah. So I've got an 11th edition, and a statement is actually interesting. I like the Black's 11th. I think they went back to some more common sense definitions with that. But yes, you sit there and write them a letter and say, "Hey, I will be more than happy to settle this matter, but I have some questions," because you want to be able to prove to the court you're acting in honor.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm saying, hey, write them a letter, reconnect, and say, thank you for your last communication. I greatly appreciate your time. Would you please send me a bill? Because the original document you sent me says it's a form, and a form is defined in Black's Law Dictionary, 11th edition, as blah, blah, blah. They'll probably write you a letter back sending you that form, or they'll with that and say this is the bill. If their letter says this is the bill, staple the two together, and say and endorse it, send it back to them, and say, hey, according to your definition, that you said in Black's Law 11th edition on this day, your communication said a bill or a coin is considered negotiable, is considered payment. So please accept my tender as payment.
Good Lord. The way the system is set up, it's nearly impossible for us not to be able to handle this stuff. It's just literally lack of knowledge.
It's lack of knowledge. It's part of becoming competent.
Good Lord.
And one of the things that you've got to realize, Mark, is this, brother. Every bit of everything, every day, every step of every day, every minute, every second is a test. When you're dealing with GovCo, it's even more of a test. And are tests supposed to be easy? No. Tests are inherently supposed to kick your ass. That's what they're there to do. They are there to stress you out. They're there to measure your ability to handle your business and handle it, execute it properly.
Look, I quit high school. I was a C grade student in high school, not because I couldn't make straight A's. I just didn't care. I quit high school, went and got my GED, went and got an apartment. I was married, had a daughter in high school. If I never went to college, never done anything, can do this stuff, you can too.
Yep.
Popeye had a little greater education than I did, and look at what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And look at what Boris is doing. Look at what Eon says on YouTube. We're all saying the same things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm noticing that.
Think differently.
In fact, Boris and I pretty much, my basis of everything that I talk about, Boris and I are cut from almost identically the same cloth, and we have slightly veered off from that basis only in the sense that we have grown and enhanced it. We're kind of like with the Constitution being built on the strength of the Articles of Confederation, we just built on the strength of our basis of what we learned.
Now, anybody that's listening in the group, if you're not on my other platforms, I'm sharing my link tree. That way you can go to YouTube, you can go to Rumble. There are videos on each channel that may not be on the other one. So TikTok, website, whole 9 yards. Okay.
Thank you.
People, you can go through my videos and listen to this. And yeah, you're going to hear a lot of the same stuff over and over because why? There are new people coming all the time. I started this group because I got so sick and tired of the one-hit wonder process communities. Oh, don't talk about that. Only concentrate on this process. And I told every one of them, I said, you have forgotten where you come from. When you were new to this, you had logical questions. And these people have logical questions, and you're not even bothering to answer them. That's why to get kicked out of this group, you really got to do something. I don't restrict what people post. If I don't like it, I'll jump on and do a live, and we'll discuss it, and I'll tell you why I don't like it. That doesn't mean it's wrong. That just means I personally don't like it, and I may be wrong.
I'll be the first to say that in fact, I'll say this at any time, anywhere. If the information that I'm giving out is wrong, I want somebody to show me where and correct me because I need to be giving the right information.
Correct.
Period. End of story. I do not have an ego that says, oh, well, just because I already saw this and this is my beliefs. Fuck no. Fuck no. I'm flawable. I'm a man. I am capable of huge mistakes. But the reality is I have learned so much from my mistakes that I'm planning on making more.
Look,
by my estimation, from what I have heard, it just in this session so far, the information given for anybody that just happens to be listening and aren't certain about, listening to other groups, David Straight and blah, 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 whatever. I'm going to tell you right now, pay attention to everything that's been said, because this information will push you ahead in your understanding about 5 years.
Look, do you know a guy by the name of Scott White?
Look, Popeye.
No,
I only know
the reason,
y'all for a couple months.
Hold on, baby
and
girl.
Sorry.
Pastor was saying
Go
something.
ahead.
Hold on, baby girl.
see, Mark, there's a guy that's one of my members on the website. His name is Scott White. Very good Christian brother. He's in the Anna Von Reitz communities. He's taken the information that I teach to them. They actually can't stand me. Why? Because I don't endorse Anna. But they can never dispute the information. And he's reaching people those that have ears to hear and eyes to see. That's all I can do. So take the information. You got my platforms. You got my Rumble channel. Share the video. Say, hey, if you think this information is right, listen to this. And everybody that has done that has said, holy crap, this makes sense. And I'm not somebody special. There are people in this group that I respect. JW, one of them. Look through the list. JW said back listening. I respect JW. Have we butted heads? Oh, absolutely. Me and Popeye butted heads. Me and Boris have butted heads. We're not going to...
JW and I have butted heads so hard, we were practically rip each other's throats out, and I have so much respect for this brother, and he knows it.
Yeah. I mean, there are smart people in this group. They all bring something to the table. I don't own the information. I don't control the information. I share what I'm learning, and I show you where it's at. Don't make you pay. If you choose to be a member, fine. You'll get little perks. I don't make people pay. I tell people you don't have to. But you're going to read. You're going to do the work. If not, you will never become competent.
No,
So,
nobody can.
Pastor, I'm running out of space on this form. Can I copied the envelope at the top of it, and I have a lot of space up there.
What do you mean you're running out of space on this form? You don't write anything on the face of the form.
Oh, I thought I was supposed to do that.
No, now you're altering the security.
Fact.
Did you make a copy of it before you did that?
Absolutely.
Print it out. Don't even send them that. That's why I said don't do anything with it yet. Okay?
Okay.
Send them a letter that said, look, based on their last communication. What was their last communication? They said, well, according to Black's Law 11th edition, blah, blah, blah. Okay, send them a letter that says, thank you kindly for your last communication. Would you please be so kind and send me a bill? Because a form is defined as this. Pick one of the definitions. Personally, I like the next to last definition. It says a form is a legal document. So what would they use if they take you to court to seize the property? A legal document. Right? So use that definition and just write them a letter and say, thank you for your last communication. I greatly appreciate your time and help in this matter. And based on what I have so far, you have sent me a form. A form under Black's Law 11th edition is blah, blah, blah. Would you please be so kind and send me a bill? What I expect them to say, they may not, is they're going to send you a letter that says that form is a bill. The minute they give you that information, That's when you attach it to the form, because when you attach it to it, that is called an allonge. And you write them a letter back says, thank you, I am in agreement with you that it is a bill, so please accept my tender of payment, because based on your communication at such and such time, you said a tender of payment was a bill.
Got it. You're going to post this on the wall when you're done, right? Thank you.
Now I'm going to post this on YouTube.
Oh, where did I was supposed to write on that form. I thought I heard make a copy and write on the form.
That's where you do the endorsement, but you need them to give you the right answers before you do it.
Because you got to be in agreement.
Any bills or presentments or statements, the only thing that I would personally put on the front side is in the so-called dollar amount area. I would put the so-called dollar amount for the amount that you're wanting to discharge or endorse for. And that would be it. I wouldn't do anything else. Nothing more.
Yeah, you don't want to alter the face of the security.
No.
Remember, there's
if
a
anything, and just
side.
by writing that in, it creates. Well, I was just going to say real quick, by putting in that dollar amount, it locks it in on that dollar amount, because if without that, they can make it for whatever they want, even after it's been endorsed.
Look, there's a public side and a private side. Some of y'all have experienced these judges where you file a motion in court and the judge just is sitting there talking to you, and nonchalantly, you're not paying attention. He flips the motion over and says, but I don't see anything.
No endorsement.
So do you think they'll just send me the same statement again?
Because why? The back is blank. Private side.
Yeah.
Okay, I will re-listen. I have enough. I do like the number 4. I agree with that. So I think I can do this. Thank you very much. Have a good Christmas if I don't get to talk to you guys. You're amazing.
You're just about as amazing to reconnect. Like I said, for a lady such as yourself to actually be out there kicking ass like you are, good on you. Not too many like you out there, so.
I'm the one that got the mask removed for the whole state of Missouri and Oklahoma. So I'm a 71-year-old badass. I'm not going to lay down and roll over.
You're a troublemaker.
Yes, I am. And I'm also a twin. And I'm not the compliant twin.
Oh, my goodness. There's 2 of you out there.
Oh, she's night and day different. We won't go there.
Now, my signal right now stinks, so y'all got to bear with me.
This stuff is so simple. It almost makes me angry that it's.
Well, didn't Jesus put the child on his knee and says, "This is how you're to come to God"?
Yeah.
What does a child do?
Ask questions.
But Mark, isn't it true?
Don't they look at things very simply? You sit there, you're going to go to the store, and you look at your son and daughter and say, I'm going to the store, you want anything? They said, yeah. Can you get me a candy bar? You say, yes, son, yes, daughter, I'll get you a candy bar. I'll be back in a few minutes. They don't sit and explain it away and say, oh, he meant this, he meant that. They just say, Daddy's going to get me a candy bar. Daddy's going to get me a candy bar. Well, that principle is laid out in the void for vagueness doctrine, that every law has to be written in such a way that the common man can understand it. It doesn't say does. So it's believed by the system that you can.
Well, the reality is we can all learn Italian. Doesn't mean we do know Italian or understand Italian, but we can all go and learn it. And it is just that simple. People think there's more complex than that. But the reality is this too, like what you were just saying, Mark, about how being so simple that it'll kind of pissing you off. Well, could it be that it has already been said, it's already been written, that the truth will set you free, but it'll make you miserable as fuck first?
I've talked about it before, the burden I carry every day, even though I feel that weight for the stuff I teach and the stuff that's going on because I care. This is my ministry. It is a burden because with great knowledge comes great sorrow, because I sit here and watch people that struggle and go through this, and there's nothing I can do to change that. But when you have that burden, ask any pastor about the weight they carry if they're genuine and actually are trying to do God's work. They will talk about the burden, the weight they carry, but the only reason they can carry it is because they're doing God's calling. That brings that peace that surpasses all understanding. Many are called and few are chosen.
Yeah. I heard it be said, when somebody's praying and they say, Jesus, I saw when you were walking beside me and there was 2 sets of footsteps in the sand. And then for a while there, I saw just 1 set of footsteps and I couldn't believe that you would leave me in my time of need. Jesus said, I didn't leave you. I was carrying you. Think about it.
I mean, go look at Jersey Dan. What did he do? He went into court and used the Lord's Prayer. And that was over 6 years ago. He's still in jail because he was double-minded. But when he used the Lord's Prayer, he beat those misdemeanor charges. And what do I keep saying? Ye of little faith. People say, well, what if this happens? Ye of little faith. You're going into a religious temple. Ask the judge, do you believe in Lady Justice? Who is Lady Justice? The Roman god Justitia. You're going into a religious temple. They say, how do you plead? What is a plea? A plea is a prayer. They're asking you which God you pray to.
Again, it's all pretty simple.
Believer in Christ, but you're praying, but you pray to their God. Now you're a heathen because you can't worship.
Double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. All of his ways.
But what happens? People get fearful of the. But people get fearful of the judge. Okay, if you want to know who your God is, who do you fear? Then that man's your God. Then do what your God says. Go to jail. Be a slave. Be a taxpayer. Be all this stuff that they tell you to be. There was a guy that got busted for using drugs. I think it was a marijuana case. This was years ago. He goes into court and he doesn't use any statutes, codes, or court cases. He used none of that. Every time the DA spoke, he quoted scripture back. At the end of the case, the court ordered that they give him back his property and let him go, that this man is pure of heart and innocent. These people are Masons. They freaking believe in a higher power. They know what's going on. They know that you don't. But it's not their place to hold your hand. Because if they have to hold your hand, you are never free.
No, it's their place to punish you for not knowing who you are as a player in the game. That's their job. And since you don't know and you go in there telling them that, being a witness against yourself, then they have to correct you. You've told them that you needed correcting. They're going to do it.
That's why I said reconnect. If you get them to tell you that that form is a bill and they don't want to honor it, you can literally file a small claims court against them and enforce it if you know how to go in there and talk. And they'll have to accept it because you only have the rights you're willing to fight for. All roads lead to Rome. What is Rome today? The courts.
When do I put that UCC 603 or whatever? I've got it written down. When do I put that? Do I do it on this communication?
No. Your communication right now is, say, based on their communication. Okay? They said what? Bills and coins. Okay. Thank you for your communication. Based on our last communication, I understand what you're saying. Would you please be so kind? Don't make an admission that you agree that it's a bill. Don't do that. Okay. Because why? You want to leave it kind of vague. You just say, thank you for your last communication. Now, how would I word it? I would say, thank you for your last communication and your time, and I know it's valuable, and I appreciate it. Thank you for helping me understand it. Okay? Would you please be so kind and send me a bill so I can settle this matter? Because the only thing I've got right now is a form, and a form in Black's Law Dictionary is defined as blah, blah, blah. They know they sent you a form. That's what it says on it. So the reason you word it that way and you leave it at that is what you're trying to do is get them to write you a letter back that says, no, that form is a bill. Now you've got them.
Yeah, got to ask them the right questions to where their answers lay the playing field.
Yeah, now you've got them where you need them. Because since if they tell you that that is a bill and their definition on this communication said that bills are acceptable for payment.
Bingo. That's pretty much a slam dunk. Because again, this gets exactly into what I'm talking about. You ask them the right questions, let their words lay out the playing field, and then when you hit them with the hardball questions, they can't go back and change the playing field.
And I don't send a copy of the letter. I'm just keeping it for down the road, right? I don't give any.
Yes, you keep a copy of every single communication you create, because why? That becomes your file if you have to go to court. You may not have to.
Got it. You've said it enough times. I'm getting it really faster, and I will work on it. And number 3, here it comes. Thank you, Pastor. I love it.
But keep this in mind, and this is the thing, like I was saying earlier with the mortgage. If you do any of these things, I don't care what it is. If you plan on doing any of it, you best be prepared to take it full tilt. Don't go in half-assed thinking, oh, I'll just do this, and then they're going to roll over easy, and we'll have to even... Bullshit. You better be prepared when you decide the very first moment that you decide I'm going to go ahead and squeeze the trigger on this, you better be prepared to take it all the way till death do you part. I'm serious as a heart attack, because if you come up anywhere short on that, they're gonna eat you alive. You got to be prepared. You got to be ready. When you decide to squeeze the trigger, you got to be completely committed to going full tilt.
Sorry to have to ask this question.
If you're not willing, go ahead.
Where was it that we found that definition that bills were payment, acceptable as payment?
That was in Black's Law Dictionary. That was her letter. They put it in her letter.
But what was that definition of?
Legal. Was it legal tender, ma'am? I
Yes.
think it was. So
yeah.
they got the definition out of Black's Law Dictionary. dictionary, I'm pretty sure it was 11th edition, that said legal tender is bills, plural, or coin. Well, if a bill is payment, then don't they send you a bill every month? Look, the 1995 IRS Paper Reduction and Privacy Act says you're to do one of two things, and or. It says one or both. To do a tax return and or a statement. What do they give you in the mail every month? A statement.
It says tax statement on it. Yeah, it does say tax statement enclosed on the envelope, but it's not on the form. That's clever.
That's right. They sent you. It's very clever. You got to get to the point where you pay attention to every single word that's on it, because in law, every single word, punctuation, grammar matters. And when you get to where you can see that, most of these attorneys are mediocre at best. That's why I've got some attorneys that actually respect me and like me, because why? We can speak the same language. I got other attorneys that hate me because I see through their crap. I had an attorney in here. He lasted 5 days and left.
And he hated me. By the time he was ready to go, he was seething. When he would think of me, he would seethe. He couldn't stand me. And why? Because I wouldn't just go along with his bullshit. Plus, he wanted to try and tell me that two people, a friend that was a former prosecutor for the city of Long Beach here in California, and one of my former professors, the one I was referring to earlier, both of which have 25 plus years as attorneys here in the SoCal California area. He wanted to tell me, after being in the service of an attorney, after 2 years, he was going to tell me that these men with 50 plus years combined were wrong about something. Bullshit. And especially since I've actually played it out in reality and proved it to myself that what these men said is absolutely true. So, yeah, attorneys are really flaky fucks, in my opinion.
When you get to the point that you have this kind of knowledge and you go up against attorneys, they'll never be able to handle you. That's why Popeyes ran 3 of them off of his mortgage case already. They're just passing it around. And every time they go through it, what happens? They're saying, hell no, I don't want no part of this. They know who they're against.
They don't like the way I kick sand in people's faces in the sandbox.
I actually, in that 7-year family court case, I went to jail over that case. Me and my wife both. I fought them so hard. Okay. I didn't turn myself in the state where it was at because I knew better. I turned myself in my home state. And I spent 45 days in jail, and the judge in that case looked at the paperwork and said something don't look kosher here, lowered my bond, and I was out that day. But one of the things that happened during that time I was in there is they appointed that court-appointed attorney. Well, I knew enough at that time, not like I do today. That was almost 7 years ago, right? But I knew enough at that time about jurisdiction and stuff like that. And she's like, well, I can't challenge jurisdiction. I said, jurisdiction is fundamental. She says, but the Uniform, whatever act it was at the time, I can't. By the end of that case, in the 45 days I was dealing with her, when I got out, I went by her office and had a conversation with her. She said, I'm going to tell you this one thing. She said, you have changed my perspective on a lot. She said, I am convinced you're right, and I need to research it further. When you know what's going on, you can change these attorneys' minds on how they look at things. They're not all bad. They just don't know what they don't know because they went to an indoctrination school to learn the basics.
Yep. And the reality is, my school wasn't so much the law school that I was going to as much as it was standing in a courtroom, asking questions, and getting reincarcerated no less than 7 times. When people talk about, especially like with Nick, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. They were just getting tired of you, and the only reason they did that is because they were getting tired of you, and whatever. Bullshit. They spent 2 fucking years trying to put me in a cage. They weren't tired of me. They put a fucking $1 million bond on my head. They were targeting me. I
Your
knew
head ain't worth
and know
that
what
much.
I know, not because I just think that I know and or somebody told me. No, I know what I know and think what I know because I've experienced it. I learned through firsthand experience by standing in a courtroom, asking questions, getting chucked in a cage for asking a judge questions. And then when I finally started asking the right questions to where that judge, instead of chucking me in a cage, ran out the courtroom. That was a progression of experience and learning that got me to that point where I realized this is how it's done.
Yeah. This, when you know, you know. And when you know how to talk to them, they treat you differently. Yeah, they're going to put you to the test. Yeah, they're going to give you hell, give you a hard time.
Yep.
But didn't Jesus tell you it would be that way? Yeah.
It's supposed to not be easy. It's supposed to be a test, and a test is supposed to be hard. They're supposed to kick your ass.
Jesus said that the God of this world is Satan. And the Bible is really a book about a tale of a war between 2 kingdoms. The question is which kingdom are you going to serve? You're going to have to be in this world. So maybe, just maybe, you need to learn how to operate within the kingdom to respect both sides. Because even the devil is not allowed to do certain things. Look at Job. He could do anything he wanted to do except kill him. And his wife must have been a really annoying woman because why? The devil left the wife with him. I'm not being mean, woman, people. I'm joking with y'all ladies. But look at it. Think about it. The devil can only do certain what God allows him. He can tempt you. He can tempt you. He can trick you. He can do all these things. But he can't kill you. If he can get you to agree with him, guess what happens? He wins. And he can accuse you. Okay, he comes in the form of the district attorney. He's your accuser.
And what is the one thing that makes man so much different than animals? Could it be that animals do not have the ability to threaten another animal with death tomorrow if they do not perform today, the same as man does to man? If you do not perform today, we'll put you in jail or you will die. This has created an illusion that if you don't just do what you're told, and this goes right along with the whole school system and some other shit, they get you asking the wrong questions. They don't have to worry about the answers. If you're just going along doing what you're told without questioning anything, yeah, it's simple shit for them. Easy. The whole idea and part of the reason for all this shit is to start thinking beyond what you're told.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how much time has this guy been driving? He's got 7 empty parking spots, and he's done pulled up 3 times because he can't even park in a blank spot. No trucks nearby.
I'll leave the new guy alone.
I know. I was there once too. But still, I just find it amusing. Some people shouldn't be driving. Not an 80,000-pound land missile.
A whole bunch of people shouldn't be driving.
A lot of people have said that about me.
Well, I
like doing donuts and stuff.
Yeah. Well, Justin, you can hardly walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. So driving, I don't know.
Well, I
can
can
do
assure you,
backflips
if you were
and do
to
bubble
ask
gum.
Olive Oil way back when we first started dating, she'd have told you not that I couldn't drive, but that I just shouldn't drive, and not because I drive horribly in the sense that I'm like just a really bad driver. No, because I scared the piss out of her one time. We were on our third date, and I got into a race with some guys, and it was a very funny situation. Well, we were going skiing. We were going up the mountain, and in fact, just as we got off the freeway and started heading up the mountain, we passed a couple of guys and a brown Chevy Caprice, and we get up almost to the top of the mountain, and we're at the top where the road's starting to flatten off a bit and starting to get into some of the twisty turnies near the top of the mountain. And as I'm getting to the end of this last long uphill, about a half mile of uphill, I'm driving a Volkswagen Squareback. It's built a bit. It's pretty fast, but it's still a Volkswagen, and I'm getting about halfway up that long uphill, and it's starting to get slower and struggling. I look in the rearview mirror, and I see this guy coming around the corner at the bottom of the hill in a Chevy Camaro, and he's on it. He's on it hard, and he actually catches me before we get to the top of the mountain. Seriously, this guy was on it, and I had it pegged, but Volkswagen compared to V8, I didn't have it. So that being said, once we started to get into the flats, we started getting into the twisty turnies, and this is on a mountain road that I've driven many, many times since I was a young boy. And it was dark, it was early dawn, and so there was still need for headlights. We went into this left-hander, kind of a hairpin turn. I knew that there was nobody coming because there was no headlights. So I dove into the left lane, or into the oncoming traffic lane, into this left-hand hairpin, dove onto the inside of this guy, whipped around him, took off. Now I'm in front of him, and I'm hauling ass. And I'm stirring the shifter, and the whole time Olive Oil is starting to get excited. She's telling me, slow down, you're going to kill us. Well, we get around this one corner, and I can see the guys, I take it back, the guys in the brown Caprice, they had passed me earlier, not me passing them. I was incorrect. We get to the end of this little twisty turn section. I come around the corner, and I see the guys in the brown Caprice, and they're at the end of this little straight stretch. I'm digging into the throttle, and I'm going, and pretty soon we catch up to these guys. And we come up onto another hairpin left-hander, and no lights coming, so I dive down to the inside, whip around them. And the guys in the Camaro, he'd seen this move before, about a few miles back, and so he decides to go ahead and dive down onto the inside and whip around these guys, and he starts hauling ass after me. Well, the guys in the Caprice decide, oh, that looks like fun, so they get into the chase. Now we got two Chevy V8s chasing a little Volkswagen flat 4, and I'm just in love with the situation because I'm stirring the shifter, having a great time. The entire time, Olive Oil is just freaking the fuck out. Slow down, you're going to kill us. Oh, my God, you're going to kill us. And she's freaking. We come up onto the bridge, which is actually the dam for the lake at the top of the hill. And I noticed across the bridge on the other side, there is a little Chevy Vega that was facing the wrong way on the wrong side of the road and up against the rocks. The first thing I think is, okay, black ice. I'd already been thinking black ice the entire time. But I figured, okay, well, there's got to be black ice because that's the reason why this guy's up against the rocks facing the wrong way. So I slowed down. I literally backed it down to like 15 miles an hour. I'm just barely putting up the hill on the other side of the bridge. All of a sudden, the ass end gets just a tick loose, zip around, and I spin it just to do a 180, stop with about a foot and a half, 2 feet from between me and the cliff, the wall, the rock wall that the Chevy Vega is up against. So now I'm facing the guy in the Camaro. I'm laughing my ass off because I'm figuring, oh, this is fucking hilarious. I stop racing and then I actually spin out. This is too fucking funny. The guy in the Camaro, he's laughing his ass off. The guy in the Caprice, they're laughing their asses off. Come to find out, we all are ending up going to the same place to go skiing. They end up parking next to me because they want to see what's under the hood in this Volkswagen because they've never got their ass handed to them by a guy in the Volkswagen. Olive Oil won't ski with me that day. She tells me, you're buying me a lift ticket and you can just go hang out with your new friends. I'm not going to hang out with you. And she didn't. She was pissed off like a wet hen. And yeah, these guys and I, we partied all day. We had a great time. They checked out the hood, under the hood of the Volkswagen and all. They were pretty impressed. And of course, well, Olive Oil's within arm's reach, so I didn't scare her off too much. 40 fucking years later, and she's still right here. But yeah, and she could tell you, yep, it's exactly what he said. It's exactly how he did it. He was hauling ass up that hill, and he did beat 2 V8s doing it. Didn't I, dear? Yeah. There it is. Could have killed us. Yeah. But I'd raced up and down that mountain quite a few times. That was just one of those very funny ones, though, that she got a nice little taste of what kind of skill I actually got when it comes to being behind that so-called wheel. Pretty fun stuff. And it was a little on the unnerving side for just an instant when the ass end started to swing around. I was thinking, oh, fuck, please don't just smack the wall. If anything, just don't smack the wall. And I didn't smack the wall, so we were good. That was the only part that I was hoping, because I didn't want to have to do a whole bunch of body work and straighten out the fucking side of the car after smacking the wall.